Hello, and welcome back to another episode of More Than Milestones. I am so excited to be joined today by the amazing Alyssa Campbell, who, if you don't know her, she has a master's in early childhood education. She's performed research in emotional development. She is the founder of Seed and Sow and a two-time best-selling author, which is freaking incredible. And we are going to be talking today about big kids, bigger feelings, supporting emotional and social growth in ages 5 to 12, which is really an age group I feel like we were just talking, like you are one of the only people I see really talking about this. And as I'm starting to experience it with my own kids, I'm like, I need help. So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for being here. And just give us a little intro into you before we start.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we found this like gap where the most of the work that we do at Seed is with school systems and with childcare programs. And we support families who have kids at those schools so they get access to our resources. The families do through the schools or through the childcare programs or family childcare providers. And we publish Tiny Humans and it's out in the world. And people were like, thanks so much. But also, why is my 9-year-old a teenager? Or like, what's going on in this stage? And we didn't really have anything front facing for families who weren't families at one of the elementary schools that we were working with. And we're like,
Mhm.
we need a resource for folks in this age range of 5 to 12, this elementary age range, where it's kind of a desert. There's this myth that it's gonna be, like, chill and easy, like, the teen years are hard and emotional, and the early years are hard and physical, but there's this, like, glorious time in the middle where things are easy, we're like, "Buckle up." It's just different hards.
Yes.
And so we really wanted to, like, create something people were asking for it to dive into what does emotional development look like. We start to really experience things like an age bias in this time period where we're like, you are old enough to know better. And that comes up both at home, it comes up in the school system. And so things like that are just so common that folks are like, help. And Big
Mhm.
Kids, Bigger Feelings was really designed to be that guidepost and help folks through the emotional kind of whirlwind and understand the nervous system of their unique child. Nothing I ever write is a manuscript for like, do this way. I don't know about you, but I birthed two very different humans.
Mhm.
And so anytime somebody's like, do it this way or say this thing, I'm like, sure, for one of my children.
Yeah.
And what about the other one?
Yeah.
And so it's really about helping you understand your nervous system, helping understand the child in front of you, how their nervous system works, and really be able to respond to them.
Yeah, I love it. So let's get right into it. Why do you think that ages 5 to 12 are such a critical but overlooked window for emotional development? Like why is that? Why do we have that you're old enough to know better mentality?
Yeah, they're not our little babies anymore, right? Like when your 2-year-old's throwing a tantrum in the grocery store, it sucks. You're not like, can't wait to do this again. But it's not like as embarrassing, maybe, as if your 7-year-old is throwing a tantrum in the grocery store. There's a
Mhm.
different cultural bias around this. And what we start to see developmentally for kids, and actually, Brene Brown, we're not on a first name basis, Brene Brown has really great research that shows us developmentally what's happening around age 7 in that we start to look at who are we in the world? What's our identity outside of just who am I at home? And
Mm.
so we start to see this real shift towards inclusion and belonging starting to matter for kids, where all of a sudden they really notice if they feel left out of something, or they don't have these shoes or this water bottle or the it thing to be included in said group. And then all the emotions that come with that, we start to see more of embarrassment. We can see anxiety start to spike when we see those things.
Mhm.
And so it's like a new cocktail happening as they're looking at who am I in the world, not just who am I at home. And then you add in the hormonal cocktail that starts to happen earlier than we maybe want to admit or want to know or want to accept. But it's really starting for a lot of kids around age 8, 9 where there's a hormonal shift that's happening. I feel like we're talking about this now in relationship for a lot of moms of like menopause, and now people are talking about perimenopause and the hormonal shifts. And kind of similarly, when we're looking at puberty, there's also this prepubescent time where there's hormonal shifts and a lot going on for them that when we believe it to be true and we know it is true, we can respond with more compassion.
Whoa, I love it. It's so funny that you say that because I have you read much about the limbic leap as
No.
like a so, uh, it's basically there's like this really rapid period of growth of the amygdala, and like I wanna
Uh,
say it's between like 4 and 6, um, and one of my kids went through it so hard, and I was like, who are you?" And we've since come through it, but I am, like, bracing for impact when it comes to the hormones, and, like,
Yeah.
I am so scared, so I'm really glad that we're having this conversation, but I would love to really kind of talk about the understanding that big emotions aren't a phase, they're information about our kids, right? So, like, what is aside from the hormones and wanting to fit in and those things, why is it that there is that big fluctuation where it seems like they're calm one moment and then they're over the top and we're we obviously like don't really call it a tantrum at this age, like you were saying, like societally it kind of shifts away from that, but that kind of is like that big swing in emotion. So how do those big emotions show up differently in say a 6-year old versus a 7 8 6 7 8 9 10
Yeah.
year old?
Tell me you're the parent of. Eh, when we're looking at this, I think one thing we have to back up and really talk about in order to understand this developmental stage are the 9 senses. And so we lay this out in Big Kids and we go into it in depth. And it's really crucial to understand then capacity and task demand and how all those are going to play a role in your kid's reactions and how it can look like it goes from 0 to 1,000. We often hear of our first 5 senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. We talk about when we hear your 5 senses. And for all of us, those are at play, and we're sensitive to some things or seeking others for regulation. So I, for instance, am sound sensitive. For me, competing sounds specifically really add up. I was watching my sister-in-law parent. We have very different nervous systems, and she's got like a kid climbing on her back and like leaning over and talking in her face and making silly jokes. And she's being a kind, respectful parent to him and like playing this game with him while she's having a conversation with somebody else. And I was like, I would lose my ever loving mind. Like the
Yeah.
idea of somebody in my face talking to me while I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody else, so overwhelming for my brain. And it truly is not overwhelming for her brain. She has a larger capacity for stimuli. She's way more sensory seeking than I am. She needs more sensory input to be regulated. And I, from a sound perspective, need more breaks or more
Mhm.
control over my sound. And same with like visual input. My husband is visually sensitive, and so for him, clutter or piles of things drive him bonkers and really drain his nervous system. And I'm the annoying partner, just like leaving piles of things all over the place, not because I want to be annoying to him, but because my brain processes that information differently. And so for him, when he comes home and there's piles of stuff and the kids' backpacks are here, and then there's a bunch of dishes in the sink still, and all that jazz starts to really add up for him and drain his nervous system in the same way that when I pick my kids up from school and they're each like, Mom, 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 watch this, Mama, Mama, all needing different things at the same time. And my daughter's like, Can we put Opalite on in the background? And I'm like, Oh my God, there are too many sounds at one
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
That's draining me. And for my daughter who's sound seeking, she is like, wants music on in the background. She's jamming all the time. She loves to be in a room where there's a bunch of people and competing sounds, and that makes no sense to me. And so when looking at this, we have our 5 senses that are playing a role here. And then we have 4 additional ones that often go untalked about. We have our interoceptive sense. This lets us know what's happening inside our body. Do I have to go to the bathroom? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I hot? Am I cold? Also, in relationship to emotions, can I notice things when they're building? Do I feel my heart getting like beating fast? Do I feel myself getting clammy? And all those internal, my son calls this the volcano, where like before it explodes, before it erupts, can you notice it bubbling up? For some folks who are interoceptive sensitive, they really notice all those internal cues in a heightened way. These are kids that are often referred to as like highly sensitive or big feelers or deeply feeling, where when they feel something, they don't feel it a little bit. They feel it big and they notice it early and they notice that build. And so it can feel really overwhelming for them. When we look at these kids in this 5 to 12-year-old range, they are truly like throughout the day experiencing so many emotions at school, so many social interactions, and they are just feeling things so much that their volcano can get so close to erupting that one little thing at home, the tip of the iceberg, then they blow. And it looks like, what in the world is going on? Like, where did that come from? And this is such a huge eruption because things have been bubbling up and building for them all day long. And they, at this age, especially with the like inclusion and belonging, start to really notice the humans around them. And they start to pick up on, oh, if I cry here, or if I scream here, if I erupt, or people see these parts of me, or I express in certain ways, I might not feel included in this space. And so we say how school often gets the best of them and we get the rest. Like they're going to hold it together and mask in some capacities. All of us mask in some manner. We talk about masking in the book too. But all of us mask in some capacities, and our kids are going to do that. They're going to have the social awareness to say, not every place is the appropriate place for me to melt down. And
Mm,
then they come home and we get that. We get that
mhm,
big eruption of everything that they haven't released all day. We have three other senses that are really crucial, though. We have our vestibular sense, which lets us know it's responsible for our movement and balance, keeps us upright. And for kids who are vestibular seeking, these are kids who love the swings. My son is vestibular seeking. He'll like hang upside down on the couch to watch TV, has a little seat that twists 120 degrees that he has one at school, he has one at home, sits at the dinner table, kind of acts like a swivel chair would, that kind of rocks back and forth. My husband, vestibular seeking, sits in an office chair that swivels. I'm vestibular sensitive. I get motion sickness. I'm not your gal for like a fair ride or a roller coaster. I'm not going to go on the swings. If there's a couch or a swivel chair, I'm on the couch. Like, keep me stationary.
mhm,
And when we're looking at this in our kids, if you have a kid who's vestibular seeking and at school all day, they have not had a lot of access to vestibular input, then their nervous system hasn't had the opportunity to recharge in that way throughout the day. They're going to have less capacity at home.
mm,
And then we have our proprioceptive sense, which is responsible for letting us know where our body ends and something else begins. I have lower proprioceptive awareness. So for me, like my bed has not moved in years, but I bump into that sucker all the time.
yeah,
I always have bruises on my legs. And I need a lot of proprioceptive input for my body to know where it ends and something else begins, or like what's the right amount of force to use in something. When we're thinking of kids who have lower proprioceptive awareness, these are kids who maybe don't stop moving. They're climbing, they're jumping, they're all over the place. They might push too hard or hug too tight because the amount of force that they're supposed to use in a given instance is still something they're looking for more input in to their muscles and joints to know what is that right amount. And for schools, actually, we see a lot of support around proprioception. This is something schools are like down to put a chair band on, or we talk
mm,
about adding weight to things. When people think of our senses and flexible seating, they're often talking about proprioceptive supports for seating. And we, when we're looking at this at home, we're going to look at, I think, like CrossFit for kids. How do we add weight for them to things? They are my like helper carrying groceries in, or
mhm,
we play a game in our household where I have one kid in a laundry basket and another kid is pushing the laundry basket. The
mhm,
kid pushing the laundry basket is the kid who needs more of this input.
mhm,
And my other kid actually has high proprioceptive awareness, and this looks like a bigger space bubble. These kids often aren't going to like be your snuggly kids, maybe with their safe person. But outside of that, they're like, you're good. When I taught preschool, we played a game where my kids would use like suspenders basically on a hula hoop, and we would see, where is your comfort spot? Do you like it when people are inside your hula hoop or outside of your hula hoop?
mm,
And this can let us know, like, how big is your space bubble? And this comes back to that proprioceptive sense. And then we have our neuroceptive sense. This one comes in hot in the 5 to 12-year-old range. Our neuroceptive sense lets us know, I call it our spidey sense, if there's safety or danger. And so, you know, that feeling if you like walk into a space and people have been arguing, but they stop, but you can feel it. And
Mhm.
it's like that awkward tension. That's our neuroceptive sense at work. It is reading the room, it listens to the tone of voice, it's noticing body language and facial cues to let us know what's not being said and to really let us know, am I safe here? Our kids who are neuroceptive sensitive, they are very aware of how somebody else is feeling or what somebody else is experiencing, even if it's not being said. And as you get into this age range with inclusion and belonging becoming so important, they are reading that room all the time and they're like, oh, I just saw that face change. Like, are they mad at me? Am I not going to be included in this thing now? And my husband's neuroceptive sensitive. And just the other night, I'd like had a thing at work and I was like still thinking about it, still trying to process it and work on it. But I had to pick the kids up from school and move on to the parenting part of my day and making dinner. And he was just like, hey, something going on. And I was like, oh, I'm thinking about this work thing. And he was like, oh, great. I'm not going to like get yelled at or you're not going to be like, hi, we need to have a chat after the kids go down. And I was like, yeah, no, this is not about you. He's like, great. Love to hear it. And for our neuroceptive sensitive kids, we can give them the tools for this communication to say, hey, I noticed that you made this face or your body pulled back. Is everything okay? Are we okay? Otherwise, they make up their own story. They're my husband who's like, are we going to have a chat when the kids go down? Is there something I should
Mhm.
be anticipating? Is she bubbling up? And without communication around it, they're going to create their own story.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at these explosions, it's just so key that we understand who our unique child is, what they are sensitive to, so what they're really aware of and what's draining their nervous system, and then what actually recharges that individual human. What are they seeking for regulation?
So it's so interesting. I'm so glad that we're talking about all of this because just two examples popped up in my head as you were talking that I recently shared in stories about myself, and I am neurodivergent and I've got like some stuff. And one of the things that I shared was I my socks, right? So Jay had bought me socks for Christmas, and it was a bold move on his part because I am so particular. Like they have to be soft but not hot, and if they're like the terry robe, soft like cloth, like
Yeah.
robe material, and they make me hot, I start to literally feel like I'm gonna panic. And the other one is that we like if he knows now, if he walks past me and like lightly touches me, my reaction, like my instant is to like recoil. Like I could I could get you. But if he walks past me and gives me like a deep hug or something like that, like
Hmm.
that is what resets me. And so when I shared it in stories, so many people were like, "Oh my god, same. Like I've never heard someone describe it that way." And it really made me think about the fact that we have as adults so much awareness around those things, right? Like when I was 10, I couldn't describe why I was about to have a panic attack, but it was because the seam of my sock should have been like I needed it turned the other way, or I was getting sweaty and that was making me feel like I was going to freak out. And it really got me thinking about how so often we almost expect more from our kids than we expect from other adults. Like adults can snap, adults can have a bad moment, adults can be like, I need to get this outfit off of me right now before I lose it. But if our kids are like, I don't like the way this seam feels, or I don't, this is making me itchy. We're like, you're fine, get over it. And I have not stopped thinking about it. This was like last week. I've not stopped thinking about it since then. So I guess that leads me to my next question, which is how can parents identify what their child needs and what sets them off? Like, is there an easy way to kind of start to piece that together so that we can support them appropriately?
Yeah, so we worked with a group of OTs, occupational therapists. It's largely who we work with predominantly in our practice and in our work. And we created a tool for folks. It's totally free. And actually, version one went live last June. As of this morning, we've had around 13,000 folks fill it out.
Wow.
And we have gathered like feedback on like, okay, how can we even deepen this and provide them more insight into what these results mean for them? And have like version two coming out this summer. But you can take a free questionnaire, seedquiz.com, and you can take it as many times as you'd like. And it's for different age groups as well. So you can take it for your kids, you can take it with partner, you can take it for yourself, and it will break down those 9 senses and where you fall from sensitive to seeking, from a -2 to a +2. And then it helps you make sense of that information. This is a tool that
Incredible.
yeah, we've used it with schools for years. It's like our flagship tool that we use with schools. And with schools, it helps us then identify who needs what seating, who needs what supports and accommodations in a classroom, what's the right transition for this kid. If we're seeing challenging behaviors, what are the right approaches for regulation and coping for this child? And so it gives us insight into like, how does your unique nervous system work? In fact, the way that this is set up from a -2 to a +2 with all 9 senses, it's about 2 million unique nervous system IDs that exist, and we help you find your unique one because
Wow.
we know it is like a fingerprint that it is unique to you. And even we have 2 kids in a classroom we're working with right now who are in second grade, and they both have an ADHD diagnosis, and they couldn't be more different from each other.
Mhm.
And so when we look at their 9 senses, we can see that one of them is quite sensory sensitive. And when their nervous system is drained, they tend to really turn to movement to try and regulate. But actually, if we decrease the sensitivities, if we provide support for them to have breaks from stimuli, we see huge movement decreases for them. And so their high seeking tendencies that we're presenting on the outside as ADHD of really needing a lot of movement are drastically decreased when we just decrease stimuli for them. So
Mhm.
we could have, and they do have flex eating, but we could have continued to add more and more and more tools in. And actually, when we just reduce stimuli for them, they need fewer tools.
I love that.
So things like that, that we're really looking at like, how does your unique one work? And it's totally free, seedquiz.com. There's a paid version if you want like kind of more in-depth analysis and more resources and tools around what you can do with this. And then for anyone who takes it now, we will send you a link to take the like level 2 kind of level up still free that's coming out in the summer.
Incredible. Oh my god, that's amazing, and we'll link to that in the episode notes too so that people can find that easily, but that's incredible. Wow.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about connection really is the foundation for everything else and how we can build a deeper, more trusting connection with our kids because the reality is this is also the stage where they're kind of starting to feel like they're pushing away from you a little bit and they care more about what their friends think and that inclusion piece. So how can parents stay emotionally close and connected when our kids are pushing for independence and we want to allow that, but we also want to stay with them, or acting like they don't need us? How can parents
100%.
navigate that?
Yeah, it's so hard, first of all, because it's the us that's hard, where all of a sudden your kid might go from like a dog to a cat, where instead of like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here," and they greet you at the door to like, "Hey, I'll be over here on the couch."
Mhm.
And that shift for us is real. So first honoring that there is a transition here for us as we allow for interdependence instead of codependence, and that they also still do need us and that that's real. It's not like, "Oh, well, they're 8. They are fine now in the
Mhm.
world." They do need us. They just need us to show up in different ways. One thing that's so helpful is understanding your kid's connection blueprint of how does your child feel most connected? And we look at this in really 3 categories. We have our like talking, sharing category, the kids who are like, I just want to talk about my day. My daughter will do this. She's 2 right now, but she'll like be nursing at night and then all of a sudden she'll pop off and she'll just like share something about her day. She was like, I hit Emma today at school. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh, okay. And then she'll just like go back to nursing. And she's like, I just have to like offload my thoughts
Yeah.
and loves the talking and sharing. And she'll just like sit next to somebody and we're in a big hang. She's going to find somebody to sit next to and chat with and wants to know, like, what's your favorite color? How old are you? And that is how she feels connected.
Mm,
That is my son's nightmare. That does not bring him connection.
mhm.
And for him, he really loves proximity where maybe we're not touching, but we're near each other, and active engagement where I'm really engaged in his thing, where he can like tell me what he's building or what he's creating, and then have me be a part of it where it's really child led. And actually, if I give him like 5 minutes of active engagement where I'm sitting next to him and he's like, okay, we're making right now, he's very into invitations and thank you cards.
Aw.
That is he cannot write yet. He is 4, but he will like, there's all these little notes all over the place of like, you're invited to this play or whatever.
Aw.
And it's very precious. They are hanging literally all over my house. Like I went to the bathroom the other day and opened the toilet seat and there was one stuck to the toilet. And I'm like, to figure out some limits around this. But it's very precious. But if I sit down and I do those with him and he's like, okay, mom, you're writing a note to Carmen and here's what I want you to write and whatever. And I give him 5 minutes of that. It fills his connection bucket and then he's off to the races independently versus my daughter who, if I'm like unloading the dishwasher, but she's at the dining room table with something to do at the table and we're chatting, that's connecting for her.
Mm,
And so one thing that's so huge about this is recognizing that we all receive connection differently. And we actually from the adult lens had gone to I live in Burlington, Vermont. There's Jazz Fest here in the summer. And my husband had carved out like my mother-in-law was gonna put the kids down for bed and we're gonna go watch a show on the water at Jazz Fest. And we go listen to the show, we're coming home. He feels super connected. Active engagement and proximity are also his connection blueprints,
mhm,
and mine's talking and sharing like my daughter. So we're leaving and I'm like, it was fun. I had a good time.
mhm,
It's for me like going to the movies with somebody where I'm like sitting next to you with a shared experience, but not talking at all does nothing for me in terms of
mhm,
connection.
mhm,
And so we left and he felt really connected and we left and I was like, I need to talk for 45 minutes now
mhm.
before I have that same level of connection
Yeah.
experience. So when we look at this, part of it is really understanding like who's our kid? How do they feel connected? And then as we move from the 4, 5, 6 year olds into our 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's still with that how do they find connection? But now, how do I enter into their world for that? That maybe active engagement for a kid is not going to be maybe playing with Legos or making these invitations. It's going to shift into what type of activity do they like? Are they really into basketball or soccer right now? And we're going out and we're shooting hoops or we're playing, kicking a ball around in the backyard. Or is it talking and sharing and we're like maybe listening to their favorite song that they're really into right now and they're going to make up a dance to it and I'm going to be chatting with them while they're doing this and I'm a part of their world but still connecting with them in the way that they receive connection.
I love that. I love that. And when I think a big piece of this for me is that there is bound to be kind of missteps in that connection, right?
Oh,
Or they
yeah.
really like we know that something's going on and we're like, please just talk to us, but we can't pull it out of them. How can caregivers really like repair or rebuild after conflict or after kind of that feeling of disconnection or like, please just talk to me and they're like, no, 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 pushing back even harder.
Totally. Well, and like just a side note that asking them to talk is like quicksand. You're going to sink deeper and they're going to pull farther away. And there's a 16-year-old that I'm close to in my world. And we were doing like a shared weekend together, our families. And we got to the weekend and I was like, hey, bud, like, how's your girlfriend? And he was like, we actually just broke up. And I was like, "Oh, man, do you wanna talk about it?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And then we're hanging and the night goes on, and I was like, "Hey, after I put the kids to bed, do you wanna drive and get ice cream with me, and we can just drive in the car and listen to music?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And so we just, like, put on music, we talked 0. We got ice cream, we drove, we listened to some tunes, came home, went just, like, about our evening then. When we were in the car and we're, like, listening to music, we're connecting, there was a part of me that wanted to be like, "So what happened with your girlfriend?" But I
Mm,
know that if he sees it as like, "Oh, she used this as a way to get me to talk," he's gonna pull back further. It's like, I
mm,
really just need to honor this as connection. He's not a talking, sharing human. And then the next day, we were going for a walk in the woods with the kids, and we're just walking. And when he didn't have to look at me, he already felt the connection from last night. He then started to like tell me what happened. And I was like, "Okay, Alyssa, shut your trap, like, say as
be cool,
little
be
as
cool, be
possible."
cool.
He's so cool. And literally, I have to, like my whole work in that moment is, like, say less. And I just have to, like, really focus on don't ask a million questions. And I, at one point, just said, like, "Man, that sucks, bud." And I was like, Do you want ideas for what to do right now, or you just wanna tell me about it?" And he was like, "I don't want ideas." And I was like, "Great, cool, yep, I have none, perfect."
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep and that's it. And it's really, truly, like, we want the tea. We want to be the person that they're gonna come to and they're gonna share with, and we're like, "We can help you feel better. We can
Uh,
help you move through this. We've experienced all these things. We're so wise, and we have so much to offer." And they're not often looking for that.
uh,
They have to move through this and experience the challenges and the hard stuff on their own. And so that part, first of all, just sucks about being a
mm,
parent or a grown up or an adult to a child, is that it's not our job to prevent the hard stuff or rescue them out of it. It really is our job to move through it alongside them and support them when they need support. But being in a hard feeling doesn't necessarily mean you need support.
uh,
And that part sucks, really.
mhm,
And I think is the hardest part of parenting. And I now back to your question. The repair after we do misstep, there's not a single day. I've done research in emotional intelligence. I have a master's degree in early ed. I'm a teacher and a parent, and I've never left the day and been like, I was perfect today. I
uh,
responded perfectly 100% of the time. I nailed it. Absolutely not. It, we get to model that perfection isn't the goal, that we have our own nervous system. We're going to get overwhelmed. We're going to react. We're going to experience hard feelings, and that we get to come back to them and say, "Oh, man, earlier I was really overwhelmed. I was trying to get dinner ready, and you and your sister were nonstop fighting with each other. And I knew that everybody was hungry, and I really had to get dinner on the table in order for everyone to stop fighting. But the noise was so overwhelming, and I yelled, or I reacted, or I wasn't kind. And I'm sorry. I am next time gonna pop in my AirPods and listen to a song so that I can control some sound and calm my body and then come help you guys." And that's it.
yeah,
We then get to move forward. And you know what they usually say? Like, "All right, mom, thanks. It's
yeah,
fine."
yeah,
We get to recognize that that is repair and that that's enough. The goal isn't that they have a perfect parent and that we have gone through the day and been perfect. The goal is that they get to see what it looks like to make mistakes and to have accountability for your mistakes and your actions, and that all you can do then is repair with someone and they get to choose what they do next with that.
I love that. That's such practical advice, and it's honestly amazing though because even, like, for my kids, I always if I get overstimulated and I act in a way that I'm like, "I'm sorry," afterwards, it turns into, like, a joke where they're like, "You kinda turned into, like, crazy mommy for a second there," and I'm like, "You guys can tell me that, like, you are allowed to be like, 'Mom, take a deep breath,' you know, like, just like I would wanna say to you," and it's cool to see as they're getting older how, like, just taking the moment to apologize even when they were younger and didn't have like, it didn't they rolled right off them, they didn't even care, like, now it's, like, built into this cool
Mhm.
dynamic, so I love that. And we're gonna head into a part where I feel like this is uncomfortable for a lot of parents, and it makes me sad to even think about my kids navigating this, like, at school without me, but it is a part of life. So I would love in this part to just talk a little bit about navigating puberty and body changes and sex and drugs and peer pressure and how to build trust early because it really starts so much earlier than we think. And I think a lot of us are surprised by that. So, developmentally, why does it make sense that these topics are showing up younger or what feels like earlier than we're anticipating? And what can parents really realistically expect in that 5 to 12 age range when it comes to these conversations?
Yeah. I don't know that they're showing up younger than they did in the past. I just think it's earlier than any parent wants it ever because we want it never.
Mhm.
And uh, so it always feels like, oh, I can't believe we're having this conversation at 9. And one thing that's super rad actually is if you have kids who are talking to you about these like often taboo subjects, it's a really great sign for your relationship that they feel safe to talk to you about those things, that they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm not gonna be in trouble. You can handle this hard thing. You aren't gonna yell at me or tell me, like, we can't talk about this or that that's inappropriate to talk about." It's a really great sign. So if you have a kid who you're like, "Wow, we're already in this space where they brought up sex or puberty or they're talking about things that often have felt taboo," a really great sign for your attachment relationship. Also, if
Mhm.
you have a kid who isn't talking to you about those things, it doesn't mean you're failing. It
Mhm.
just means that maybe they might not be talkers and sharers, or they might notice, I feel embarrassed by this. Maybe culturally they've already picked up like this is not something that everyone talks about, and they just might have that social awareness and
Mhm.
have some feelings around it, and that's fine too. But when we're looking at this, what's so key is that it's not a one conversation thing. It's a constant thing that'll continue to come up where we say, "Hey, bud, I'm here if you need to chat." Not forcing the conversation. My favorite times for this are typically when we're like in the car and they don't have to look at your face or process anything from you. It's not asking them to respond to things, just, "Hey, I noticed that when I came to pick you up, you were standing by yourself and your group of friends was all standing together. I'm here if you want to talk about anything, bud." Or, "Oh, man, I heard that conversation when I was driving you and Jackson back from practice, and he said some things that really weren't kind. I'm around if you wanna chat." Or sometimes people say things that aren't kind about other people's bodies when they feel insecure about something in their body. Just leaving little nuggets for them without like, "And let's chat about this. Let's sit down
Mhm.
and have this conversation." And they're like, "I would rather go play in the street than have this conversation with you." Like, there is nothing I'd rather do less. And so when we are continuing to say this door is open and not getting to the place, what can often happen is as they get older, we're like, they've got this, or they don't want to talk about it, or they know I'm here, but really continuing to come back to this. Actually, do I have it? Yeah. My favorite resource and book for This Is So Awkward.
Mm.
Cara Natterson and Vanessa Kroll Bennett. Cara wrote the Care and Keeping of You series that a lot of us grew up with, as she's a pediatrician, and their work is all in like the teen space, but they go younger as well. This book is really for like age 8 to 18, and it looks at things like puberty and body changes and how to talk about it. But one thing that they've been on my podcast a few times, have continued to just like drive home is that you're going to have a bunch of conversations that feel really uncomfortable and awkward where you're just saying, "This door is still open. I
Mhm.
am still here. I'm still going to ask you. I'm still going to get curious with you because I love you." And we are in big kids, we don't guide you through exactly how to have certain conversations because it really depends on your kid, but we do point you to resources that do that, like this is so
Mm.
awkward, and we guide you through how to maintain a safe connected relationship where your kid knows they can come to you. One of the biggest things for that is looking at punishment. If when kids make mistakes or things get hard, they're in trouble, then there's going to be a fear of, if I come to you with this thing I know I wasn't supposed to do, maybe they're at somebody else's house and they are exposed to porn in some capacity, maybe on accident, maybe they're playing a game and something comes up. If they think that they're going to be in trouble, if they come tell you, they're not going to come tell you.
Mhm.
And so, what we try to guide you through is, how do you maintain a relationship with them where they're not afraid of being in trouble? And it doesn't mean there are no consequences for things, but it's where they know whatever comes up, bud, we can handle it. We'll
Mm.
figure it out together. And all that to say, they are still going to lie to you because lying is developmentally appropriate.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, great. This is a fun one. I mean, people do it all the time, right? Like if you're in an elevator with a bunch of people and you farted, you're gonna be like, "Yeah, it wasn't me." People lie all the time, and it is for so many different reasons. We lie for the like social uh savior piece of, I don't want somebody to think that it was me who farted in the elevator, because then am I going to be made fun of? Am I not going to be included? Am I not going to belong? All of that social component comes into this. They're going to lie if they don't want to get in trouble. And you remember Zima, the drink, kind of like a
No.
Mike's Hard. Okay. Yeah. A little throwback here. In high school, my mom found Zima in my bottom dresser drawer and she was like, what's this doing here? And I was like, I have no idea. And she was like, "What do you mean you have no idea?" I was like, "I have no idea how I got there." She's like, "Somebody came in and put Zima in your bottom dresser drawer." And I was like, "They must have. I have no
That's
I
crazy.
can't
We need a
buy
better
that. That's
security system.
yuck." Plus, we didn't even have locks on our doors, grew up in the country. So, I was just like, "Yeah, I have no idea." I knew if I said, "That's mine," I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And so it's for sure worth it for me to be like, I don't know, someone must have come into our house and put Zima in my bottom dresser drawer, because now she has to prove me wrong for me to be in trouble. I'm going to
Mm.
be in trouble if I say it, or I'm be in trouble if she proves me wrong.
Yeah.
And those are dice I'm going to roll. And so for kids, if they are afraid of they're going to be in trouble, they're going to lie.
Yeah.
Or if they knew they weren't supposed to do something, but they're curious because they are humans who've been on planet Earth for like 8 years, they're going to do things they know they're not supposed to. My son recently with Sharpie drew X's on certain parts of the exterior of the house we currently rent. And it was like X marks the spot treasure hunting situation. And I was like, oh, wow, I noticed some X's outside. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, "You're not in trouble if you did the X's. We can figure this out together." And he was like, "I didn't do the X's." And he's like, "He will take this to his grave." I know he did the X's. It doesn't super matter to me if he admits it. That is just for my ego. What
Mm.
I want him to know is, hey, it's not okay to draw in the house, right? And so I said, okay, well, I'm not sure who did the X's then. It's interesting. It looks very similar to the X's you've been making in your treasure hunts. But what I just want you to know is that Sharpies are for these things. And we listed out, like, where can you use them? If they go on the house, it's really hard to get it off, or somebody might have to paint over it, and it's not an appropriate place to draw with a Sharpie. If we keep seeing Sharpies show up in places that they shouldn't be, I might just pop the Sharpies in a spot and we'll wait until we're ready to use them in the right ways.
Mm.
And he was like, "Yeah, okay. Well, I'll let you know if I see someone doing Sharpie on the house." And I was like, "Great. Thank you so much." And then we do like different family things. And one of them was like, all right, our family thing today, we'll do like kind of like family chores or whatever. And one of them was like, all right, we're all going to work to get this Sharpie off the house. And so we had materials to all work together to get the Sharpie off the house, and he didn't feel, like, shame or blame around it, but he learned the lesson. We haven't seen any more
Yeah.
Sharpies show up on the outside of the house, and that's
Yeah.
ultimately what I want, is that
Yeah.
he is not gonna draw with Sharpie on the house. Great. I don't need him. He's an interceptive, sensitive human too, and so for him, he feels things real big. Shame is huge for kids
Mhm.
who are interceptive, sensitive, can feel really overwhelming. Accountability for their actions can be really hard to access because 'cause they're so overwhelmed by the feelings, and what I know with him is that it does if he were to come and say like, "Alright, I did it. It was me," that's all for me.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
doesn't
Wow.
teach him the thing that I really want him to know, which is no Sharpie on the house.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, my youngest is 4, and he has been dabbling in fibbing lately
Mhm.
as his speech has gotten better and better, and the other day, we were in the car, and he was telling me that, someone in his class that 2 boys in his class, actually, one kicked him and one hit him, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, really?" I'm like, "Did you tell the teacher?" Like, trying to figure out, and as he's, like, telling me the story, I'm like, "Mm, okay." I'm like,
Yeah.
"So, bud, listen, if you didn't tell your teacher and, your classmates are hitting you or hurting you, like, it's mommy's job to let your teacher know so that they can help you out." At the minute I said, Is it okay with you if I email your teacher and let them know?" He was like, "It didn't happen, mommy." And I was like, "Okay, so why like, what made you say that?" And it turns out that they had hit or kicked another child in the class, and he had seen it, and he was just trying to,
Yeah.
like, work through what
He's
happened
just
and
processing it.
exactly, and
Yeah.
but it was so fun he, like, immediately confessed, and he was like, "Oh, no, please don't email them." Like "This is
Yeah.
definitely
But
a
it's
lie."
that curiosity and the processing, and we see this actually in the it's big right now in schools we're working with in, like, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, is lying from a place of connection, where
Mm,
these kids wanna feel included and like they belong, and so they're lying about things so that they can feel included and like they belong, and we can support them with this of like, "Oh, I'm wondering if you're lying about this because you wanted to feel connected. Here are some other ways that you can feel connected."
mm,
As long as we only respond to the surface behavior instead of meeting the need that drives it, we're going to continue to see surface behavior.
mm,
When we can help them identify, why am I doing this thing? You were talking about like you as a kid with the sensory awareness. Same with connection and inclusion and belonging, that you're just like overwhelmed and hot in your socks and you don't know, oh, I feel this way. I feel like I'm going to throw up or I feel anxious because I'm too hot. I just got to take my socks off. If
mhm,
somebody was like, hey, if you took your socks off, your entire body would feel different. You'd be like, "Oh, sick, hot tip." And same with like our connection seeking kids. I walked into a 6th grade classroom relatively recently, and this kid who has a lot of challenging behaviors coming from this human and some concerning behaviors. And I walk in and he's wearing a shirt that says women are the worst. And I come in and within not even a minute of me being in there, he was like, "Do you like my shirt?" And I said, "I'm really wondering if you wore it so that I would pay attention to you, so that I would notice you." And he was like, "What do you like my shirt or not?" And I was like, "I actually think it's quite offensive, but I'm mostly interested in how else you could ask for attention or connection outside
uh,
of doing something that's offensive." And he was like, "Ugh, okay, she doesn't like my shirt," and like turns to everybody. And I was like, I'm gonna wager a guess a lot of people would feel offended by that. And a lot of people want to connect with you. And that's probably not gonna lead to connection with them.
mm,
And he paused. And later I was like in other classrooms and I came back into his classroom and I just went and I sat next to him and I was like, I really want to know you. I'm really curious about like what you are interested in. And he was like, I'm not interested in anything. And I was like, cool. Can I share some things I'm interested in? And I just started talking about like myself. And I was like, I'm a Yankees fan and a Chiefs fan, and I am a mom, and here are things I like to do. And then he was like, the Yankees suck. And I was like, oh, cool. Who are you a fan of? And we just got to like then actually connect and talk and find common interest. And connect in a pro-social way. And before I left, I said, I had a really great time hanging out with you and chatting with you. That felt more connecting to me than your shirt and the way that we connected earlier.
Mhm.
And just slowly letting this dude know that there are so many paths to connection and there's some pro-social ones too.
Yeah,
And that that's actually going to lead to more connection for him.
I love that. Wow. Also, though, where is the shirt? Are we kidding? Like, who's
He
buying
has a
that?
lot of trauma in his background.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, I would love to kind of just tie this all together with just talking quickly about handling unkind behavior, peer conflict, boundaries, in a way that we can kind of understand as parents, like, what is the difference between a normal conflict and situations that we can back off and be there for them if they need
Mm.
us, and ones where we need to get involved? Because one thing I have learned since my kids went to school is, like, I have never had so much beef with children in my entire life. Like, I'm like, "Do I need to show up at the playground? Do I am I is mommy ready to throw
You're like,
hands with
let's
an
go,
eight-year-old?"
Sarah.
I'm like,
Go.
"Come on, let's do this." So but I have really had to, like, check myself and be like, "Is this a moment where I actually need to intervene, or do I just need to be there and kind of, like, be aware of what's happening and let them kind of work through it with me?" So how can we gauge that, and how can we kind of navigate that as parents?
Yeah, I think starting with the fact that there's going to be a lot of discomfort for us in this stage, in the pulling away, in the hard feelings, they're going to feel left out of things. They are going to be embarrassed. People are going to say rude, mean things to them. And we outline in the book the difference between mean and bullying behavior. And
Mm,
that when we are looking at bullying, we're seeing that somebody has power over somebody. It is repeated actions, there's intention behind it. And the greatest thing we can do with bullying behavior is help the kid who's doing the bullying get their need met. Because
mm,
all behavior is coming from a need. And if we're responding to the behavior on the surface, we're late to the party. If we want to be early, we're going to be looking at what does this kid need? Are they did they learn, as many adults model, that power and control is what you're supposed to be striving toward? That I am the boss and what I say is what happens. And if we are constantly going with a power over instead of a power with approach with kids, they learn that what I'm supposed to have is power. And if they can't have it with the adult in their relationship or at home, they're going to look for where can I have power and control because
mm,
that's what I'm supposed to do in this world. And so we help guide folks through what are questions that you can ask yourself first that are going to look at is this mean or bullying behavior? Bullying behavior is something where we're going to step in and we might reach out to the school and say, hey, these are things that are happening. This is what my child's coming home and reporting, and I want to know what next steps are. We work with schools a lot on this, actually. A lot of code of conducts have zero tolerance policies, which the data shows is not effective in reducing bullying behavior. In fact, it often escalates it because it doesn't get to the root of what that kid's need is. It just
mm,
punishes surface behavior. And you can give a kid OSS and kick them out of school for 5 days, and then they come back. And if we haven't met that need or taught them anything new, we're just going to keep seeing behaviors happen. They
mhm,
might just shift it to be sneakier or it's gonna show up in a different way, but until that need's met, we're gonna keep seeing it.
mm,
When we're looking at mean behavior, we can empower our kids with a few different avenues. We can let them know things like, well, actually, let me pull back. First, I'm gonna ask them, do you just wanna share about this or do you want help in figuring out what to do next? Because they might just need a place to vent. They might
mhm,
be like, I need to offload this. My daughter, at the end of the day, when she's like, I hit this kid at school, she just needs to offload what's happening. She's not necessarily looking for, at that moment at 8 p.m., a what do I do instead?
mhm,
She's like, I need to process this. I need to offload it. And so we can ask them, is this something that you want to talk about or share about? Or do you want ideas for what to do? And they'll let you know. And
mm,
trusting our kids to let us know. And then if they say, I just want to share about it, then it's our job to hold back problem solving, conflict res strategies, and allow them to navigate this.
Uh,
I when if they say like, "Yeah, I need help. I want to know what to do next." Instead of being like, "Okay, I'm going to call Sarah's mom. We can come together. I'll chat with her about this." Instead, we can turn it to our kid and say, "Yeah, there are a few different things we could do. If you're interested in being friends with Sarah and you feel like she's constantly excluding you and leaving you out of things, you could say to her, 'Hey, Sarah, I really like being your friend and I feel left out. Is there anything that you want to say to me or that you want to talk about?'" And really bring it to her and help them harness conflict res skills that I feel like so many adults are lacking these days. The ability
mhm,
to just say, "Hi, I'm having a hard feeling. This has been my experience. Can we chat about it?"
mm,
And so often we talk about folks behind their backs, around folks, and not to them.
mm,
And we get to give our kids the skill set for talking to another human. And we can also say, you know what? It's also okay to not be friends with Sarah if that doesn't feel good for you.
mhm,
It's okay if you're like, I was friends with Sarah for a while, and now that we're in fourth grade and she's doing different things, it doesn't feel good for me, and I don't want to be her friend anymore.
mm,
That's okay to not be her friend anymore. You don't have to be friends with somebody forever just because you have been friends with them.
mhm,
And allowing them these kind of different paths of you could say to her, "Hey, Sarah, that doesn't feel good for me. I'm not interested in being friends with somebody who's being rude to me," and just moving forward. Or you could say nothing and know that she might continue to say or do things for a little bit. And as long as it is getting a reaction, maybe that connection is how Sarah's getting her connection bucket filled. If there isn't a reaction, maybe it'll stop. Or you can address it head on and say, "Hey, this is what's coming up for me," and kind of giving these different options. And then we're scaffolding scripts for them. Here are different ways you could phrase this. Here are different ways you could say this because this is new for them. And in the same way that we wouldn't be like, "Oh, you can't swim. I'm going to throw you in the water and good luck." They're going to need scaffolding and support. They're learning a skill for how to navigate conflict. They might need some scripts or some kind of hand over hand. Let's think about when you could talk to her about this. What's a good time of day? How could you start the conversation? What might happen? What might she say? And kind of rehearsing and brainstorming and practicing at home so that then she has a skill set to move into this conversation with.
wow, I love that. Uh, Jay and I actually just had a conversation about this because he is where I am a people pleaser and I will internalize and, like, take it on myself. He is very much like, if I have a problem, I'm gonna bring it right to you and we're gonna figure it out. And we were just talking about this the other day because I was venting about something and I was complaining, and he was like, "Why don't you just talk to her about it?" And I was like, "Well, I don't wanna hurt her feelings, and, like, I don't really know what I would even say." And I was like, and he was like, "But it's hurting you to, like, hold it in." And he was like, "I don't understand that mentality. I don't understand not just being like, 'I have an issue. Here it is. Let's figure it out.'" And I was like, "Yeah, I why is that so hard for me?" So, like, even listening to this, it's like I have, especially with Audrey, my oldest, I have started to have these conversations with her, but I'm realizing in this moment that I, like, 100% don't do it myself. So
Sure.
that's interesting,
When your
something.
nervous system comes into play, like our neuroceptive sensitive humans, this is often harder for where like they read people's tone and body language. So, and it can be so consuming for neuroceptive sensitive humans that they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I would just want to keep the peace because your nervous system gets so dysregulated by somebody else's nervous system being
Mhm.
dysregulated that it feels easier to keep the peace than it does to address the feelings." Same with interoceptive sensitivities for our folks who feel things really big. Having conversations and addressing conflict head on comes with a lot of discomfort. And for
Mhm.
interoceptive sensitive folks, that's very challenging. It's not like conflict is the same across the board in terms of how people experience it. It is harder to navigate conflict if you are neuroceptive and or interoceptive sensitive than it
Mm.
is for somebody who is not interoceptive sensitive, simply in how they will experience the emotions.
Huh. That actually makes me feel so much better. Yeah, because it's like, even just being that is one thing that I know to be true about myself is when I am in a social setting, I am so exhausted afterwards, even if I've had the best time. I am so
Totally.
tired because I am constantly reading every single person in the room. I'm reading your face, I'm looking at that interaction, your body language, and when I leave, like, most Saturday nights, we have a whole group of friends that come over and everybody brings their kids, and it's like it fills me up, I love it so much, and I am so tired after because I'm like, I just need to, like, not see another human and not analyze a situation or be aware of the way this person just got up, like, it is tiring, so that makes a lot of sense,
I think
wow.
it's one of those challenges with labels like introvert versus extrovert is that when you might be someone who's like, yeah, I'm like an introvert. I like hanging out with people, but then I need a long recovery time. And it doesn't actually tell us anything about, like, why do I need a long recovery time? Is it that
Mhm,
I'm sound sensitive or visually sensitive? And so having a bunch of people over, I'm like hearing all the sounds and there's all the visual stim, and I really just need a break from that? Or is it the neuroception, which in your case, it sounds like is really at play here? And then also, neuroception is probably what makes you slay at your job because you're going to be able to read so many nonverbal cues in kids to then
mhm,
be able to see, like, what do I adjust or tweak or change, and what are they communicating to me?
mhm,
Neuroception's reading all the nonverbal stuff, and you do that phenomenally every day in your work, and so it makes sense that then when you're in a, like, large group of people, you can't turn that part of you off. That's
yeah,
still on, and after all of that, it's so exhausting, and we see this in kids coming home from school who are neuroceptive sensitive, where then, like, you speak to them with any shift in your tone of voice, and they can blow,
mhm,
or they retreat, depending on their just nervous system reaction. But they get very dysregulated from it because 'cause they're like, "I've been dealing with everybody else's facial expressions and tones of
mhm,
voice all day long, and, like, I need you to be predictable. I need to know what I'm getting here because I'm spent from doing this with everybody else."
huh, wow, oh my god, I feel this is amazing. Alright, so let's wrap this up with, can you give us one mindset shift that can make parenting in this stage feel less overwhelming?
Yeah, I think the greatest tool is taking the seed quiz because it's going to give you insight into what it is that's actually driving certain behaviors, yours and theirs, and what tweaks to make. Like, the word self-care at this point makes me wanna throw up, but how do you actually take care of yourself is so unique to how does your nervous system work, and so I think there's so many folks out there that are like, I'm doing all the things. I'm quote saying the right words. I'm whatever. And this isn't working. I am yelling at my kids at 5 o'clock, or I am fully losing it when I walk into their room and it's still a disaster after I've told them that they have to clean up. And when we understand our nervous system, it just gives us so much more compassion and lets us know, like, oh, I'm not a bad mom. I've just heard too many conflicting sounds in the last hour.
Mhm,
And just the other day on the way to school, my kids were like at each other and drive each other nuts, and mostly led by my son. And he's like putting his foot over to her car seat, and then she's pushing it away. And he's like, "Stop pushing my foot." I'm like, "Get your foot off her car seat, right? Like, this is a solution to this." And they're now yelling at each other. And then I yelled at him and was like, "Why are you being rude to everyone around you?" And he was like, "Actually, mom, that was pretty rude." And I was like, "He's not wrong. That's a remarkably annoying response, but he's not wrong." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna put my headphones in and I'm gonna listen to one song and then I'm gonna come back to you." And when I put my headphones in and I listen to one song, it's not like a trip to the spa. It's not like I'm like, "I'm coming back so rejuvenated."
mhm,
And they're not in the back seat stopping their BS. Like, they're still at each other. But I get a 3-minute chunk of time where I control the sound and can calm enough to return as a more regulated parent.
mhm.
And so the goal isn't that everyone's regulated all the time. It's that we can start to build awareness of our dysregulation and learn what actually helps us regulate so that we can come down from that when we need to. There's not a single human on the planet, not your favorite parenting expert on Instagram or the psychologist or whatever, who is leaving every day having been regulated and had regulated kids all day long, and they've been perfect. And they were like, hey, here's the boundary. And their kid was like, oh my God, I can't wait to follow it. Thank you for having my best interest at heart. Like, that is not happening. There's not a way that you can word that boundary differently where your kid's going to experience gratitude for you looking out for them instead of frustration for the boundary. Like, there isn't a cheat code here. We're humans on planet Earth who are going to cycle in and out of regulation and dysregulation. And then we put more and more and more of us together in a household. And it's just going to be hard sometimes. There's
Yeah.
going to be moments of hard. And it doesn't mean that you're failing or that you're doing anything wrong. It just means that you're a human with a brain and a body, and being around other humans with brains and bodies is hard sometimes.
Oh,
Um,
oh my
yeah,
god. I love
you're
it.
doing enough,
I
I
love
guess
it.
is my overarching
Yeah.
you're doing enough.
And I think everybody needs to hear that, honestly, everybody. Okay, thank you so much for this. Tell us one more time, where can people find you? Where can they find your resources? Where can they
Yeah.
find all the good stuff that you have to offer?
Yeah, so my 2 books right now are Tiny Humans, Big Emotions. That's the, like, early childhood world, birth to age 6, 7. And then, we've got Big Kids, Bigger Feelings, which is the elementary school years, 5 to 12-year-olds, and seedquiz.com is that questionnaire that's available for folks. I'm over at seed.and.sow, SEW, on Instagram, and seedandsow.org is like the mothership if you want to bring this work to your child's school or your child's childcare. We have all of that information on the website. So head on over to seedandsow.org for that.
Amazing. Alyssa, seriously, thank you so much for being here. This was incredible. And honestly, it was exactly what I needed. And I'm going to go grab my highlighter and reread your book 100 more times because I'm in it. But thank you for being here, truly. And we will see you guys next time on another episode of More Than Milestones.
Thanks for having me.